Hello again, friends, and a Merry Christmas season. We may be through with Advent, the waiting for Christmas, but now we're in a church season that is still technically considered Christmas. At any rate, the story that we're featuring today is Jesus as a 12-year-old boy in the temple. Now, some might say he was lost or left behind, but rather he knew exactly where he was, and he was in the right place, and he stayed behind on purpose. So today we're going to make two crafts that feature this story. One is going to be a maze, because just as Joseph and Mary were looking for Jesus, we're going to make something that sort of looks for something else. We're going to make two versions of a maze, and then we're also going to make a scroll, because Jesus was discussing things with the scribes and leaders of the temples, and they would often read scripture on special scrolls. So you'll see how that's going to go. Let's get right into things. So we're going to start off with our maze. Now again, there are two ways that we're going to do this amazing, see what I did there, craft. The first one we're going to do is sort of a three-dimensional maze. Now for this, you can use a shoebox. I recommend using just the lid of the shoebox, especially, this is not ideal because it's a hinge lid. If you have a lid that has all four sides surrounded, that's even better, but we're gonna make this work. So we're going to first, wait for the cat to cross. We're going to first cut off the lid of this shoebox, and that's going to be our base for the maze. Now again, if you want this to be entirely enclosed, you could always lift up part of your box, or you could add yourself a little layer. You could add a layer to hem this in if you needed to, or you could just leave it like this, is fine too. So we have our box. Now here comes the fun part. So we're going to outline where the maze is going to go, and then we're going to create it with some straws. You could also use toothpicks, you could use popsicle sticks, you could use little noodles. There's a variety of things that you could use. What you could not use is a cat. Yes, I love you very much. Good. Goodbye. So we're going to kind of give our idea of where the maze is going to go, just so we know where we're going to place down our sticks. And what we're going to do actually is we're going to have this maze go into the center. Well, you could have it go into the center, or you could have it go diagonally. It's completely up to you. So let's have it start. We'll have it start at the bottom, and we will have at the end, you may wish to draw, or if you have a little cross that you could place down here, you could place a cross. You cannot see that, but there's a cross right here, because our focus is that in all things we want to aim for Christ and have him be the most important thing. And if you did this maze and have it be more of a centrally located thing, you could say something like, keep Christ at the center. We're going to do it diagonally, so we're just going to say, keep seeking him. Follow Jesus. I apologize that you cannot see this because there's a little lip there, but there we go. You will see at the end, don't worry. So now we're going to outline where the maze is going to go. And we're going to have it kind of zigzagging a little bit. And we'll start with sort of our path as a two-sided path of where things will be. And then we'll add in some little offshoots of where we're not going to go. So this is going to be a little better suited to perhaps older students. Younger ones might need help or might need just a simpler maze to follow. Now, this is going to be the way that we go, but we're going to come back and we're going to throw in some holes that will not lead to the right path, just to make things confusing. And now, don't worry, this will all make sense momentarily. Now we're going to attach our straws. So here's where it gets a little interesting, because you're going to have to do some cutting of the straws to make them work. And then we're going to be, actually that works out pretty well. Then we're going to tape the straws down, and you could glue them as well, but I'm going to recommend tape because it doesn't have to dry. You don't have to wait for it to dry. So while we are getting our straws down here, you could also, the fun part is, you can, if you use bendy straws, that's even easier because you don't have to do all the cuts. You can just bend them where they're supposed to bend. So let's start down here so we can get some of these taped on. Now, if you do not wish to have to sit here and figure out how to cut each piece just precisely, you could always just put your straws down without drawing the lines. But drawing the lines first is kind of helpful to know where the maze is going to wind up. So here we have our straws coming down, and I'm going to do some snippage and some taping. And I'll try to work quickly because I realize we don't have all the time in the world. But as you can see, this could easily become rather a time-consuming but very fun endeavor. So I'm going to tape down my straw pieces here. And then once you get finished taping down all of your straw pieces, here's how this maze is going to go. This is the fun part. So we may do a little elapsed time action here for timing purposes. So once you have all of your straws or sticks, but again, this is kind of why I would recommend straws over sticks, just because it's a little bit, they're easier to work with, they're easier to cut, they're easier to bend, they are not absolutely ramrod straight, so I'm just going to say use the straws, they're a little better. But anyways, we're going to put these straws down. Now we're going to do only part of this so you can see the final product and not have to just sit there watching me tape straws all day. But once you've got your straws taped, you can do this maze in one of two ways. You can complete it with a pencil or pen, like a normal maze would go. Or if you want to have a little more fun, you could also take something movable, such as a marble or a bouncy ball or something of that nature. And you can, almost there, roll your ball through the maze. So once you've got all your pieces in place, you're going to just roll your ball through the maze. And it will go through, or marble, or whatever you choose. So again, for timing purposes, I'm not going to sit here taping these all down, but you get the idea of how you're going to construct this maze that reminds us to seek and find Jesus. Now, I mentioned two ways of doing this maze. The other way is very, very simple. So I'm going to show you very quickly. We're simply going to do this maze on paper. And we're going to do a circular one for this. You could do it with straight lines as well if you have a ruler, but we're going to have Jesus at the center. And now we can say, keep Jesus at or in the center of life or of things, or however you like to word it. Now, we're simply going to have some fun creating this pathway, and we will make our maze go this way and that way and this way and that way, and have ourselves, make sure it connects in there somewhere, don't worry. There, so that's the simple version, paper maze. More in-depth and interactive version, and three-dimensional, the other maze. So that's craft number 1.5. Craft number 2 is fairly simple. I'm going to start with some paper. You can use any color you like. Let's go ahead and use blue. Why not? I'm going to make a scroll. So first, I'm going to cut my paper in half. Hope that's relatively in half. And make a long piece of paper. Now on one side of my paper, I'm going to be writing about how we can follow God, tape or staple those together. The other side of the paper will be focused on how we follow our parents' instructions. So we're also going to be taping this into a scroll-like figure, like an old-time scroll that the Bible might have been written on. So we're going to leave, I'll show you that scroll in just a moment. We'll leave the edges just a little bit so we can do that taping bit. But we're going to have half of this focused on how I follow Jesus. The point being that Jesus obeyed God and also obeyed his earthly family. So we have I follow Jesus. We can say things like how we would follow Jesus. Pray, go to church, read God's word, to name a few things. Then on the other side, we're going to remember that in addition to obeying Jesus, part of obeying Jesus is obeying the authorities over us. So we'll say, I obey my family too. Whether that's mom, dad, grandpa, aunts, uncles, guardians. And so here we'll brainstorm ways to listen and obey to your parents. So we might say, I'll clean my room. Say, please and thank you. Maybe help with dishes. Those are all ways that we might serve our families. So now, in order to turn it into a scroll, I'm going to take, you can use a paper towel tube, you can use 2 paper towel tubes, or you can use 2 toilet paper tubes, however long or short you'd like it to be. So I'm going to use my paper towel tube, and I'm just going to cut it in half. Then, there we go. I will tape. To make this a scroll, I'm going to tape each part of my paper onto the tube. Now what you can do here is, if you have time and energy, you can decorate your tubes as well. You could also staple this. You could tape it or staple it, whatever works. And you can write on the tubes. You can throw some stickers on the tubes. You can remember what the story significance is all about. And you might say something like, pardon me, because my paper is coming undone here. Maybe on one side of the tube, you could write how Jesus obeyed as man. Maybe on the other side, you write something like, Jesus is God. Now, we're going to roll our tubes up here. And I'm just going to go ahead right now and advise you to use staples because they're not wanting to stay taped. But we're going to roll our tubes together, just like a scroll. And now we will have our lovely scroll. It doesn't want to stay taped at all. And if you have a string or perhaps a pipe cleaner or something to wrap around this, you could tie it up, make it look extra scrolly. Is that a word? It is now. And tie it up somehow so you have your wonderful scroll to remember that while in the temple, Jesus read from scrolls, discussed the Bible, and he followed God and man. And he was God and man. Mind-blowing. But if you want to know more about that, listen to the children's message. Speaking of which, we do have new message ideas and craft ideas to get your brain going. Those come out every week, so if you have not already done so, feel free to like and subscribe. Come back and join us next time for more ideas. Go make some crafts, make some disciples. Have a wonderful week. See you next time.